Good evening, everybody. Happy New Year. It's again yet another Saturday evening. It's Kim Ochelli at the Jaded Roundtable. Hope everybody had a Happy New Year. Didn't party too hard. As I sit here with my very tall glass of white Zinfandel, because I think I deserved it today. I do believe we have Suzanne Posel calling in for a while to talk about whatever. So if anybody wants to call in and join into the conversation, I do remember the phone number this time, 718-717-8296. And just join in and have a conversation about whatever. Doesn't matter. I can flow that way. Right? Right.
Also, if you're on the Charles Ochelli Skype list, charles.ochelli, you can just Skype.
That's fine, too. That'll work. So, we didn't do much for New Year's. New Year's, to me, is for amateurs. I think.
Okay.
Well, it's these people, and not the older people like, us, but these younger kids that like to go out who are just turned 21 and they're in their 20s, and they got to go to a bar and get as shit-faced as they possibly can, and then they're hungover for like a week. That cracks me up out loud. That really, because I was there once. I had so much to drink one time, I don't even know how I got home. I know I didn't drive. I got home somehow. Stumbled my way.
Yeah.
Through many, many, many different sidewalks.
I did a lot of stumbling and staggering myself, but, is what it is.
Well, I don't stumble much anymore. I'm every once in a while, I like to have a beverage. My favorite, though, is a Cosmopolitan. That is a delicious, delicious cocktail.
Oh, here we go.
So we can talk about cocktails. We can talk about how many times we've gotten shit-faced and didn't remember our own name. That's always funny. It's funny when everybody's in a good mood, and laughing. Some of the things that people say crack me up out loud. I was at a party one time years ago when I was like in my 20s, and we're all sitting around the table, and oh god, drunk as drunk could be. And one of the guys at the party said, "How high are the ceilings here?" It's like just a random ass question. And the one other guy looks at him and he says, "Why, you plan on fucking flying around or what?" And it was just, I know you had to be there, but it was so funny that the stuff people come out with after they've had a little bit to drink is funny. Unless, of course, you're a nasty drunk. Then it's not good.
Yeah, well, I guess I had way too many experiences with the nasty drunk in the crowd. For some reason, they should just have a tattoo on their forehead that says, psychosis, please add alcohol, and you will get it. But, what are you going to do?
It's fun to play Twister when you're drunk, too.
It's going to be one of those kind of nights.
Hey, it's Saturday. I can be as kooky crazy as I want to be. Oh. It's Saturday. Right?
True enough.
So is anybody going to call me? The phone number again, in case you didn't hear me the first time, is 718-717-8296. So call me and tell me how your New Year's was. I know how my New Year's was. So call me and tell me how yours was. That'd be nice.
Oh, you're over here.
Oh, wait. I'm trying to type in the chat room at the same time, too. So hold on. Oh, there we go. Oh, Suzanne's calling in now, so hold on. Are you going to answer it?
Well, I can't if you're typing.
Oh, sorry. Okay, go ahead now. Hi, Suzanne. How are you?
I'm good. Are we on the air?
We are. we were talking about New Year's Eves and beverages and, what kind make you giggle and, stuff like that.
I don't drink.
Well then you can't participate in that conversation. We'll have to change tunes then. I was just saying that I was enjoying a very tall glass of white Zinfandel at the moment. Been a rough day, so I'm having one. So, but actually, I'm glad that you did call because I know that you're on Chuck's show a lot, and I was kind of curious as to what prompted you to start the all different things that you do. I mean, you're everywhere.
All over social
You cannot
media.
escape me. Yes.
Oh.
All over social media, OccupyCorporatism.com, USIndependent.com, all that. And, yeah. Plus, appearances on my show, appearances on a lot of radio shows. Actually, even working with Steve Roberts, from what I understand.
Yep, Steve is a good friend of mine. Lots of international radio and television, and sometimes just phone interviews where they just ask me a question, record it, and then put it up on the website. I appreciate it. I'm still shocked that people want to hear my opinion, but I actually really appreciate it that people do.
Well, I have started a page also that you had put a message on Facebook about being an admin on other people's pages. So,
Yeah, because my original profile got suspended from Facebook, so when I started my new one, I couldn't even friend any of my old friends, so I had to wait for people and use other avenues like Skype and say, hey, please friend me over here, and if I was admitting on your page, could you just please, add this profile and delete the other one?
Right. Facebook, I'm sorry. I've lost interest in that. I like to go on just to say hello to some friends and, read on what people are talking about, but it's lost its mojo, I guess is the word to use, or its coolness, or...
The honeymoon is over?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I get ads for things that I'm not even interested in. I don't know where they're coming from. I get very weird friend requests, and then like people asking me if I want to go over to their apartment for a fun time, and crazy stuff like that. But where did all that come from? That's not what Facebook was.
It's really become a cesspool of what it used to be, which really wasn't that great to begin with. It really quickly, I think, morphed into cliques, kind of like how we do in real life when we socialize.
Right.
And those cliques became very adamant, and sometimes they became very militant in ideology or fanatical. And then that sort of spread like a virus throughout social media on Facebook, and it just killed it. Yeah,
no doubt. Well, when did you start becoming so involved? Like, were you working in corporate and then decided, I don't want to do this anymore, or did you always do this?
No, I went to school to be a paralegal, and I worked in a couple of law offices, and I did not like it. So I said, okay, what am I going to do? I got married and decided that I would do what my parents did not do, which was have a healthy marriage and stay at home and raise my kids. Mm-hmm. Because I didn't have two parents and I didn't enjoy both father and mother in the home, I decided that I wanted to give that to our children. So, but being raised by a woman who was very empowered she wasn't a hippie during the 60s, she was just into the empowerment. I said to my husband, well, I can't just sit at home and do nothing. Right. And we ended up watching a documentary by Niles Ferguson. This is like a 6-hour documentary on the banking industry, on everything from 2008 on to the present day when that documentary was aired. And about 2/3 into the beginning of the documentary, Niles Ferguson, in great detail, in fantastic detail that anyone could understand, explained exactly how the fiat system, why the fiat system was created, and that it's all fake. And so I stopped the film right there, and I turned to my husband, and I got up off the couch and opened up my wallet and put out all these 20s and 10s and 5s and 1s, and I said, this is worth nothing?
Right.
This is a piece of what? It just, it couldn't, I still to this day remember that shock and awe where you just can't. What did I hear that? It won't click in your brain. It takes a while to marinate. And when I realized that it was fake, I said, "Oh my God, what else is fake?"
Just about everything, really.
Yeah. So I went on let's go see what's real and what's not. And I think that it was the fact that I was trained as a paralegal to look for evidence, because when I went out onto the World Wide Web, oh dear lordy lord. I mean, if you're interested in it, they've got a website for it. Period.
Huh.
Doesn't matter what you're interested in. They've got a website, and they've got lots of supposition and factoids. You know, somebody who doesn't understand what real research is would just go, "Oh yeah, that sounds plausible. That must be true." But as I was digging into, what is true and what isn't true, and how it all came about, because what's true today was different truth 10 years ago and will be a different truth 10 years from now. And it basically has the same foundation. It just, they rebrand it for each generation and see if they'll pick it up and pass it on naturally, or if it has to be interjected into the societal consciousness for that generation.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask you then a question that concerns me that I brought up last week on my show. That, in my opinion, what we're doing now is too late for our generation. It's already gone. So we're trying to do it for our children and the future generations that are coming up, to make it a better place, to want to live in this country, to be able to have the freedoms that we were promised when we were children. But we're raising kids to be little crybabies. So how are we need to teach them, one, to, excuse my French, grow a pair of balls and stop being little crybabies about every little thing. Oh, he made fun of me, or he doesn't like me. I mean, it's never going to go anywhere if we don't start teaching the younger generation how to, and I hate to use to be a man, but to be a little bit tougher. You need to be tough to be able to handle what's coming your way soon.
Absolutely. The problem is the generations and how they have experienced the upsets, the tumultuous times that happened in their generation that they were part of, and how they pass it down to the next generation. And so Generation X was heavily influenced by the silent generation, in the way that their baby boomer parents became like the silent generation when they came to raising their children. And millennials coming out of Generation X were coddled. It was the baby on board. Remember, everybody had that sign, "Don't hit my car because there's a baby."
Oh, God forbid, right?
God forbid. Everybody put the plastic things on their drawers and their cabinetry. Mm-hmm. So, God forbid, and there was always that one cabinet that had the safe plastic stuff that you could play with.
Right.
Millennials have been coddled and given the opportunities that their parents felt that they didn't have, because they came from broken homes and they came from a situation where they might have had to grow up early, and to give their children an excess of what they never had, so they couldn't give them a healthy balance of it.
I don't think growing up too early, though, is necessarily a bad thing. I mean, I basically was on my own from, 12 years old. And if I didn't have the experiences that I had when I was 12, 13, and on up, I wouldn't be the strong woman that I am now. So I don't always think that raising a kid, I mean, every kid deserves to have a childhood, yes, but to make them a little bit tougher and a little more responsible for their own actions, their behavior, I don't think is a bad thing.
No, and in general, I don't think it is either. But as a generation, there was a sense of, we have to make everything safe. Everything has to be safe for the child. We need to make sure that their life is well taken care of, that they are well taken care of, that their emotional needs are. And so we have a millennial generation of children who are now young adults, who don't have the feeling of personal privacy that Generation X got from their baby boomer children, from their parents rather. They were raised with technology, so they don't see technology as a bad thing. They expect to become CEOs and vice presidents and whatnot before they even start the company. And they have no work ethic in as far as the ideas that we hold working at a job. Our parents worked at the same job for like 50 years and got their watch for their pension and got that pen or whatever it was. That sort of fell away, and the ethics behind that has fallen away. And so now we have a generation of people who see the government as an extension of their parents, see the world as an extension of their parents, their boss as an extension of their parents. And this generation has swung the off to the other side of the pendulum, which is a fanaticism in the trusting ability of this generation to just think that everything's going to be okay as long as we work within the system, and not that the system is bad because the system is an extension of your family, your nuclear family. And to me, that's part of the problem. But the really good part about that is right now everyone's talking about the millennial generation, and it's actually the generation behind them. That the late generation Xers like myself, who have children who are young, my son and my daughter are not part of the millennials. And they are part of the generation afterward who have more of a balance. More people are homeschooling their children. More people are opening their children up to more cohesive ideas and more well-rounded ideas that you might not want to accept for face value what you're being told. You might want to look that up and see if that's true. You might not want to trust a corporation to tell you the truth, but at the same time, we all have to purchase products. So if you're going to be marketed to, make sure that it's marketing on your terms and not just that you're buying things unconsciously because it looks, ooh, look, squirrel, right. Like we do at the impulse shopping right at the checkout counter. The Homeland generation, which is the generation underneath the millennials, I think will be the most balanced, the most ethical, and sort of rein in all the trouble that the millennials are about to cause, because in the next, until about 2024, when the Homeland generation comes into their young adulthood and their early 30s, they won't have as much of an influence on what's going on politically or anything happening in our world. But as soon as they get into the workforce and they get into positions of power, I think that we'll see a shift back, not far off to the left. And I'm not talking about the left-right paradigm. I'm talking about the pendulum swing. I think we'll see more of a balance into the center of the pendulum, where at least for one generation we'll have a group of people who understand that you have to have a government, but you have to have liberties, and you have to have some ideologies of conservative ideology, in the sense that we all need family and we all need to be close, but we have the right to privacy and we have the right to non-inclusion by outside forces, and not to work in the system to make it better, but to change the system so that it functions better.
Right. Well, going back to when you were talking about how our parents worked for a company for 50 years and so on and so forth. I worked for a company for 20 years, and the reason I worked for that company for that long was because my boss treated me, not properly, but there was a mutual loyalty there. That does not exist anymore, as far as what I've seen in the few jobs that I've had since. You're replaceable. And employers, they know this. They
Absolutely.
don't give you, they don't show their employees any loyalty. So for a kid to want to grow up and become a CEO of a bank or whatever, I don't see that happening either, because there's no mutual loyalty. If I work hard for you and I go above and beyond my, so to speak, call of duty, there should be some sort of payback for that, and there isn't. And if you don't like it, don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out, because there's 8 more people standing in line that'll take your job and put up with the bullshit that I'm going to feed them. So it's just, I don't know. It's very frustrating to me because I don't like working for anybody. I don't like anybody telling me what to do. I prefer to work for myself. And, it's just, it scares the hell out of me. It really, really does.
What we're moving toward is the age of tyranny. And we saw this happen during the industrial age when it first boomed. We saw the machinists who basically told the corporations what they were going to do because they owned their machinery and they were the only ones skilled at using it. And we saw corporations take that away from machinists, take that away from having a skill, perfecting it, and becoming the best at it that you could possibly be, and being paid a fair wage for that, to compartmentalization. And we have Ford to thank for that, perfecting the idea of the assembly line, where you only learn one task. You only learn how to drop a pin in a hole, and the next guy learns how to tie a screw, and the next guy learns how to put a belt on. And you're only good at dropping a pin in a hole. And if you are replaced by automation, it's not like you have to go to school and learn how to tie the or tighten the screw or put the belt on. The compartmentalization takes away the ingenuity and the creativity of our work and what we did. Boomers were very their job was their life, and they were very, very good at what they did, and they spent a lot of time off work hours studying and learning to be better. When you have compartmentalization, you have no need for that at all, and that also went into the school system. It was in the early 1900s where kids by National Guard holding guns to their heads were dragged to school.
Right.
And that happened in states all over the country. And the idea that you could take a child out of the home and teach them a skill and get them ready for the compartmentalization. Well, we had this huge boom of ingenuity in between then and now. And even though it's great for the middle class, it's really terrible if you want to have a controlled system where people perform a function and go to work and go home and shut up and just do their job. Because corporations have to keep the cash flow going. And if a corporation is flowing cash like a tsunami, they need the people to shut up and go to work. We saw with right after the crash in 1929, everyone was concerned about getting back to work. After everything died down and everybody realized that everybody was broke together, the first thing they thought of was, I have to feed my family. And they were willing to take any job that they could get. And compartmentalization was then reinforced and accepted. And in the years that coming on, we saw ingenuity, we saw the boom of the middle class. But now we see a move back toward compartmentalization. Obama last year was talking about the private-public partnerships that he has created with corporations and school systems in order to teach your child what they're best skilled at, move that aptitude into something that would function for a corporation so they could hire them as an employee, give them the training that they need at a 2-year college to get them to that level and then hire them at that corporation. It's a reverse engineering of what happened in the early industrial age where the machinists ran the show and then they used compartmentalization to get rid of the machinist. Now they're starting from compartmentalization. And the problem that they're going to face is the same problem they faced before, which led to the boom of the middle class, which is we as human beings have to be creative, have to be ingenuitous, and we get sick and tired of doing the same monotonous thing every single day for 8 hours a day.
Yeah, for petties. That's
absolutely. If we're not compensated, it's funny, we will do that for, an X amount of maybe even decades, but if we're not properly compensated for that, you could only stand that job maybe 1 or 2 or 5 years at the most before you're looking for something else.
Well, I need to be stimulated, and if I'm just sitting there staring out a glass door all day long, I'll blow my brains out. I need to be able to use my mind to create something or manage something or, the monotonous work is, I don't know how people do it. I would blow my brains out.
Well, they do it because it's part of the social consciousness, and it's part of what's passed down from generation to generation, that this is what is acceptable as a form of employment. I made a comment on my Facebook page, and I put this up on Twitter and other social media sites as well, that If you're sick and tired of working for someone else, then start your own business, because the middle class needs your help. And that is really the only way that we're going to get the middle class back at this point. The best way to get to socialism, or one of the best avenues, is to create a two-tier class system. And the only thing separating that is the middle class. And with less and less people becoming entrepreneurs and starting their own businesses, and even getting the opportunity to thrive, even if they fail, you don't have a generation coming up that cares about the quality of their life. They care about having a life, and if that means working for someone else for meager wages, they will adapt to those meager wages, or adapt their life accordingly, that they can't afford this or that, but they'll substitute it for this and this, because we adapt to our surroundings. And the unfortunate part about that is when you have a whole generation, which we currently have now with our millennials in their 20s and 30s, that they accept this, that this is perfectly normal and okay. And the idea that they have to be creative, well, they can do that at home with their video games and their online avatars and every other avenue.
Well, part of the problem, I think, also is I'm not going to push my son to go to college. I think it's a waste of money. He's going to be in debt for a very long time. He will not be guaranteed a job. I would prefer my son learn a particular trade or a skill, or become some sort of artist and author, something other than paying a fortune to go to a college that does not guarantee you're going to get a job. I went to school, and I didn't get a job with what I went to school for.
Well, and, that was part of the big shift, too, is that there was a big change in what the value of education really is, and the cost, the cost-benefit analysis, okay? Look, it's the reality of the world, it's cost-benefit analysis, right? At this point in time, although a couple of decades ago I would not have said the same thing, at this point in time, a college education is not even a reasonable reassurance that you're going to be able to make a living. Your ability to network with individuals and stuff like that is also no longer the great other answer. Because as we said, the culture of loyalty is much on the rise, and this is part of the major problem. That's facing us upcoming, I think, anyway.
Right. I ran a heating and air conditioning company for 20 years. And the education that I got, I went to school to be this is funny, a criminal psychologist, and minored in sociology. That's even funnier. But I did very well managing that company without a college education. I thought, I had everything that I could possibly want and more. Not that that's what it's about, but I'm not $80,000, $90,000, $100,000 in debt and still looking for a job to be a criminal psychologist.
Yeah, but see,
but you can't find that type of work anymore. I'm talking about 1989 when I was 19 years old. That doesn't exist anymore.
Well, right, because like she was saying, with the compartmentalization of so many things, compartmentalization combined with mechanization, okay, which was an innovation. Sorry, not trying to rhyme, people, but
oh yes, you are.
No, I'm not. Which was part of, the evolution of what happened here, has all led us to this place. Now, this has left a sort of an untenable position for those that wish to, enter the workforce now as adults and simply try to survive. It's no longer possible to make a living with the 40-hour-a-week job. It's no longer possible to sort of luck into those positions. And you know what I'm talking about here, Suzanne. You were part of, a little bit younger than us, but part of the same generation where this shifted. This really did shift. When we were looking for jobs, in the 90s, it was definitely a different world. You know, the employment field, as it were, was stacked completely differently than it is now, and you know, the monetary system itself has also been detrimental to that. But you know, it's one of those conundrums now where with the baby, you know, I mean, the lessons that we taught to the older kids already are, you know, pretty much seated. But but with the baby, you know, it's almost like I don't actually have an answer for you, son. You know, regarding if you want to make your living in the world, except to you know, like she was saying, to be an entrepreneur, to start your own thing,
well,
to do
exactly.
your own thing.
Go into a trade, become a mechanic, become a cosmetologist, become whatever trade interests you, and then you can become an entrepreneur. You may have to work for somebody for a little while, but you get that time under your belt and you get that experience under your belt. You can go and you can open your own place. You know, everybody's pushing, well, maybe not everybody, I don't like to use that word, but people do push the education is so important, it's so important. You know what? I don't even use algebra in my daily life. As I count my change when I go to McDonald's, and if it's right, I'm good. I don't
the problem with the problem with the perspective that we don't need education, and I'm not trying to pick on you at all, is where is the next Einstein going to come from? Where is the next great innovator in any field? They're not going to come from the generation that views work and their contribution to society as a skill that they learn from a 2-year college, which, you know, 2-year college, I had lots of student loans. I still have student loans that I have to pay off from 2. So you're not getting away from that. The spirit of entrepreneurial, the fact that Zuckerberg realized that he could do this, he came up with a concept, he dropped out of college. Same thing with Bill Gates. Now, I'm not going to go into all the other reasons why we don't like these two people, but just focus on these two events. It's not the education and the college that you're going to. It's your ability to see a potential in something that is beyond what people are willing to see today. And that comes from the ability to deduce logic and reasoning, the ability to understand facts from opinions. And these are things that are not facilitated in our public schools or private schools or charter schools. They are not facilitated in our colleges, even at the higher level. And the push toward getting a skilled job is necessity for a socialist society. And the end game being that is the most comfortable application of control of a society and having a government and having people participating being the end game, being the penultimate. This is a problem for any creative, innovative spark of humanity that is the part of the Enlightenment that has pushed our generations forward all of a sudden with booms of technology or booms of thought or booms of skill. We won't have any of that anymore. We will have drone fear-based people who are performing a function, and when they are no longer viable for that function, then they get put somewhere else and, you know, left to do whatever they do. We do that now. With the greatest generation, they were junior citizens. They were patriots. They were nationalists. And now we call them senior citizens. Senior citizen, the concept of that phrase didn't exist until the junior citizens, until the greatest generation. And we stick them in homes. We don't, Generation X is sticking their baby boomer parents, and the greatest generation is being stuck there by the baby boomers. The family, the education that children get from the people that they're around and the wisdom that they get from the other generations is gone. And so the only dependence is on public school or religious institutions to foster that. And they're focused on creating skilled workers in order to perform a function. So we have a huge breakdown of logic and reasoning. We have a medieval peasant concept mentality going on in a technological revolution. And that is going to breed absolute disaster.
Right. So at the end of the day, the real goal is to inspire innovative thinking. And how is that done? That's really the great question, the $1 million question, as it were.
Not by any of the teachers that I've encountered.
Oh no! Well, as she said, the public schools.
Yeah, you're not going to get that from an outside source. You're going to have to instill that in your children. My husband and my son. My husband was just downstairs with my son building this little robot that my son got for Christmas, and my husband let my son actually build the robot himself and just stood over and explained what everything does and how to put it together. And my son builds things all the time. He was interested in Minecraft, so we downloaded ArchiCAD. And this is it uses little blocks just like Minecraft, but now he can build buildings that he could actually use as a job, where he's creating innovatively and using the same skill that he would in Minecraft, but actually for something that he could do, that he could get paid $80,000 a year to do. Giving him the opportunity every time he shows a interest or gravitation toward a subject, giving him as much well-rounded information about that as possible so he can make a conscious decision. With the millennials are already out there doing their thing, getting their jobs, having an effect. That's over and done with. They're already programmed. But the generation behind them, which is your son and which is my children, as Xers, if we can do anything for our children that we didn't do, with the early term Gen Xers didn't do for their children who are the millennials now, the late term Generation Xers or Generation Xers who have little ones now can foster that idea into the children and help them blossom and help them create, help them be innovative. Where we remind our son all the time, you don't want to work for the grocery store, you want to own the grocery store.
Exactly.
You don't want to work for the bank, you want to own the bank. You don't want to flip the burgers, you want to own the restaurant.
Right.
Then if you want to flip the burgers, flip them all day long.
But you still own it.
Right. That is the only way we're going to save the middle class. The millennials are moving to the internet and starting online startups. And we have the advent of funding and crowdsourcing, which is new. Because you had to have certain qualifications. It's still to this day, as far as the SEC is concerned, you have to have certain qualifications to even purchase stock on the stock market. So you can't invest your money unless you are of a certain caliber and have a certain amount of wealth already established. The crowdsourcing is a way for anyone to get funded. So it doesn't matter if you can't get someone to donate or invest or give them shares of your company in exchange for an investment. You don't have to worry about that. We have crowdfunding and crowdsourcing. So now Indiegogo and GoFundMe, you can ask anyone in the world for money, and it lowers the standard of responsibility of you to the donor. Where investors, you have a fiduciary duty to them, XY, it's a huge list. With crowdfunding, you don't have that responsibility. So it has a good shining light, silver lining, in that people who might think, I can't start my own business, I can't afford to. I'm working here for $15 an hour. I make $1,600 a month. I can't afford to start my own business. Yes, you can. You can start it on the internet with little to no overhead. You can use crowdfunding or crowdsourcing to get the capital that you need to move forward. And we don't take advantage of these opportunities. I think Generation X is not taking advantage of it because we didn't grow up with the internet. But as soon as we got on the internet, ironically in '96, the first thing we did is start e-commerce. And why we're not injecting more support into the middle class by using e-commerce based on our startup companies, I don't understand, but it is a phenomenon that is happening. Millennials are comfortable with the marketing. They've been marketed to all their life. They don't see a problem with it, and they're not very ingenuitous. Only 40% of millennials coming out of high-level colleges are even trying to start any startups, and we're not going to see a resurgence of the middle class unless millennials get their butts in gear.
Mm. Well, two things I want to add in here because, I'll shut up because it's Kim's show. But, you're dead on with this. I'm almost surprised. First of all, this is an offhand kind of thing, and I'm sure this will spark some discussion. But I'm almost surprised they haven't killed the whole independent crowdsourcing funding mechanisms out there, because I figure that's a serious challenge to the to the stranglehold that the banking industry has on enterprise, as it were, in the general market. Okay, because as you did point out, it is one of those things that will absolutely sort of undo that systematic control. Secondly, it's kind of funny that you bring it up, because we were talking about this, earlier this week regarding something that I would like to do, and we were thinking that this actually might be a solution. Kind of getting on the bandwagon a little late, but. But you know what? I agree with you all the way around. And by the way, again, if anybody wants to try and join in, the phone number is up there. I don't know actually if the phones are working, just so everybody knows. But if not, if you're on my Skype list, just send me a message. Okay? So. Anyway, Kim, what do you think? About the crowdsourcing. I think it's a great innovation, and it is an excellent way to take the banks out of the equation.
Well, it is, but I wouldn't donate to a perfect stranger. Why would somebody want to fund me money to start my own business? They don't know who I am. I could be saying I want to start my own business and turn around and buy myself one of those really beautiful Mercedes coupe cars. How do you know that somebody's legitimate? I hate to be cynical, but you have to be. People lie. People cheat. People steal. There's no such integrity. That's out the window.
Well, there's ways to set it up so that you're kind of answerable to what it is.
I don't think so.
To do, I think
there's that friend. He's not my friend, but
I haven't fully explored all this. So
somebody lives in Damascus, where the war is going on, and there's a GoFundMe site for him on Facebook, and it's up to he's got like over $11,000 in 9 months. Who are these people that are just sending him money? Oh, because you know what? Shit, I'll give you my address. You can send it on over to me. Well, I don't know why people are just sending money to somebody you don't know, and you don't know for sure that they're really using it for what they claim to be using it for.
Yeah, that could be said anytime you make a donation to anything.
That's why I don't.
Well, realistically, that's why I stopped donating to a lot of things that I believed in, and that's the thing. A long time ago, there were things that I actually believed in, so I wanted to fund them because I thought it was a good thing to do, or a great idea, or what have you. There are people that have that attitude, that have a little bit extra, that would be willing to kick into almost anything that sounds good. The dishonesty of the recipient is yet another issue.
Well, I would do that, but I would not do it to a perfect stranger. I would donate to Feed the Homeless, or what is that? Homes for Humanity, or
Habitat for Humanity.
Yeah, that thing. Yeah, some children's illness research. If I hit the lottery and had $200 million right now in my hand, I would donate to organizations like that would help children who are very sick. I would donate to the Veterans Association, because I think it's a sin that the veterans got to wait 5 weeks to go see a damn doctor. I would donate money to fix that problem right out of the gate.
Well, see, but these are issues that speak to you. And a lot of people will donate to just about anything if you have a presentation that speaks to them. Think about some of the larger, let's just say, independent media people out there. A lot of them get donations all the time with no promise of really what's going to happen to the money. Just that you're supporting their presentation. You know what I mean? So this is the kind of thing that's done. I'm sure there's a wild variation between the reality that comes from what you're donating to and what actually happens to the money in a lot of cases. But again, cynically speaking, all of that has been part of the equation. Whether you're putting a quarter in at the jar at the store, or you're making a $2 donation on the internet, it's the same thing. And realistically, that kid in Damascus, Well, he's in a war-torn area, so if that speaks to you, if you want to relieve him during that, which is a tragedy.
Well, it is, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just a cynic.
No, it's a Generation X thing. That's typical of Generation X. We were brought up by our mostly hippie parents who did not trust the government, Dennis Hopper. And we have not as much distrust as our parents did, but we are cynical about that. We saw the Christian Children's Fund and all of those commercials, and then we heard about how the money was being redirected to other things. Live Aid is another example where, I'm sure that everybody who donated when it started in the 80s and most recently, but in the 80s they took that money and funded a refugee operation to get Ethiopians out of Ethiopia. And it resulted in the deaths of over 200,000 Ethiopians. I'm sure nobody donating to Live Aid ever thought that was possible. But as these things came out and Generation X saw these things, it changed how we feel about donating and what kind of nefarious purposes our money will be used for. But millennials don't have any of that. Nothing like that happened in their childhood, so they don't see any reason not to believe. Plus, they've been marketed to so heavily throughout their childhood that they receive marketing much more readily than they do cynicism, and they are sick and tired of the fear porn, and they are sick and tired of hearing us and the baby boomers complain about how bad it is and how we have no privacy and we have no rights. They see the technological boom as something that is necessitated for our survival as well as entertaining, because they grew up with all of this technology being primarily a source of entertainment and then being a source of education. And it is the dichotomy of the two generations arguing with each other about what is legitimate and what is acceptable as facts and what is acceptable as opinion and marketing, and whether or not we need to fall for marketing, or are we even capable of deciphering through the marketing to get to the truth? Was there ever a truth to begin with? Do we even want to spin our wheels doing that, or do we just want to go along and do whatever everybody else is doing? And Generation X just doesn't want to do that.
Right, and I don't want to sound like...
No, you don't. There we go.
I don't want to sound like I'm, a heartless bitch, because I'm really not. I donate to, the food banks and stuff like that, but because that's what I feel comfortable donating to. If my neighbor needed something and they were hungry and I only had 2 pieces of bread left, well, they would get 1 piece of bread. I just don't feel comfortable donating money to, what was that, crowdfunding, my fund me, whatever. I just don't feel comfortable doing that because I don't know where my hard-earned money is going.
Well, see, but as she's saying, the skepticism has kind of changed, between our generation and the existing, or the emerging generation, I should say. Like, okay, look at it this way. You've heard the conversations between me and my daughter. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
My daughter who's, excuse me, was born in 1999, okay? So she's not quite an adult, but she's getting there, all right? If you notice, like, the cynical kind of viewpoint I have of the world is not part of the equation for her. She doesn't, and I didn't, I wasn't a full-on participant in her upbringing the whole time, which is part of why there's a difference between us. But like she was saying, at our age, we experienced the fact that, the money that went to Live Aid didn't necessarily go to feed the children in Africa.
Right.
We experienced, the concept of, we learned about the administrative costs of different charitable organizations, that were supposed to be, fairly trustworthy and so on and so forth. So we experienced that betrayal that they didn't. So believe it or not, there's a whole new generation of people that figure, kind of their gullibility is up, in my opinion. But again, that's because I'm cynical.
Well, and I hope I hope she doesn't lose that. because that's a very good quality to have. But my fear is something is going to smack her really hard in the face, and it's going to turn it around. I hope not, because she's...
Well, it will. It will.
And
As a generation, millennials, because they're coddled, they expect. And when they get out into the real world, what they're going to realize is you don't get anything. And you especially don't get anything for free. And you could work your butt off and still get nothing. They never experienced that as children growing up, so they don't expect that from the real world when they go out. And they stay close to their parents. They still borrow money from their parents. They go to school close to their parents. They go to college close to their parents. They get a job close to their parents. Everything is an extension of that nuclear family for them. They have no realistic ideology about what the real world is really about, and so that is going to blow up in their face as they grow up. The best thing is going to be the Gen Xers who are raising the generation after the millennials, who are living through what their baby boomer parents started and never finished, and coming through and watching the millennials come in and accept every sort of gratis that is offered to them, no matter who's giving it, and seeing the turmoil that it is causing in our economic system, in our education system, in our governmental system as they grow up. It's the generation after them that I think will swing the pendulum back toward the middle and be more logical and reasoning that, yes, we do need government, but we don't need this type of government. And yes, we do need to maybe compromise on some things, but we don't need to compromise on other things. And I don't have to give up who I am in order to be part of this. Millennials love community. That's what social media is about. That's why the internet has become the all-encompassing thing that it has become, because it's an extension, like I said, of their parental home life where everything was inclusive and everybody was together and snuggling and it was all very safe. They have no fear. And when you have no fear of anything, you're gullible. And as a generation, I think once they realize that they just don't get something because they showed up, there's going to be a lot of tantruming. But at 40 years old or 30 years old, a tantrum could, if you own a business or if you are a high-level CEO and you throw a tantrum, you could cause some sort of economic uprising. You could cause an economic problem. That kind of mentality is just destined to implode into itself. It's the generation afterward that I think has a more level head, watching the millennials go ahead and blow it all up. Will say, well, wait a minute, there's middle ground in all of this, and we need to focus on that middle ground instead of swinging all the way to the right or all the way to the left. I think that's the only hope we have at this point.
Yeah, and it is true that each successive generation really seems to be, and this may just one of my crazy observations, but every generation, not just when we're talking about the Xers, the millennials, and then the homeland generation. I am so disgusted by that term even, but the homeland generation, okay, really is the result of the tug of war between the sentiments of the previous two. They were calling the following generation Y at one point. And then my joke, of course, is that they stopped asking why. And so they had to take their why away. So, but the thing is this: it seems as though like we are basically the result. The Xers, let's dial it back. The Xers are the result of those previous two generations. One of them having a staunch sort of nationalist point of view, okay, believing that the government is out there for their greater good at all points in times, believing that the big companies are there to benefit the people, believing that, trickle-down economics makes a lot of sense. Stuff like that worked out very well for that generation. Then came that sort of more radical, more social, ideal where we had, of course, it was punctuated and decapitated by the assassinations in the 60s and the change of the social norms that emerged in the 70s, which we were born into. But the thing is, if you look at the tug of war between those two generations, you ended up with a very cynical point of view, like pretty much, well, the government's full of crap, and guess what? So is all of your ridiculous hippie nonsense. We're not going either way on this one. We're the result of that tug of war. So now we have taken up our role on one end of the rope, while the millennials grab the other end.
Right.
And we're now going to see, the millennials are the result of the tug of war between us and our parents' generation. Okay, and now the millennials grab up their end of the rope, and we have the homeland generation that will emerge from that. And really, it does seem as though we have the possibility of a positive swing. The mistakes of your parents, you try to answer. We always do that.
Nothing like my parents.
Well, let's see, but that's the thing. Is
my God.
And your parents would say that they were very likely nothing like their parents.
Oh, no, they were. I'm the black sheep.
No, but they were. But, see, that's the thing, is that quite often, like I said, we're very influenced by the generation previous to us, whether we want to be or not. And that could
if
be...
you say so.
Well, it's either a harsh whiplash, or it's, it's something. But believe me, you're heavily influenced by it, one way or another.
Alrighty, then. If you say so.
See, here's where we agree to disagree. And I'm going to shut up now because it's Kim's show.
Nah, it's all right.
Moving on.
We absolutely we see that here in our Congress. We have boomers and Xers in our Congress. We have an Xer president. He has been very vocal that he is a post-boomer president. Mm-hmm. And we have a rise of conservatism here in the United States. We have a rise to traditional values, which is being fueled by the extremism of the fanatical right. And we have stalemate in our Congress because boomers and Xers can't agree on anything. And so Xers are kind of like, hey, as long as I stay under the radar, nothing's going to happen to me. I'll just put it off to the next guy and hope he works it out. And the boomers have moved into the last phases of their life where they're picking back up those staunch, as they swing all the way from hippie, now they're swinging all the way back to conservatism. And they are looking at everything at the golden years of their life and saying, oh, I can't be radical about this. I have to be level-headed about this, and I have to think about the implications of this. They're thinking about legacy and how their generation is going to be viewed as generations look back at them in the history books. And because of all of that, we have this complete stalemate where nobody knows where the direction of the country is going, even though millennials believe in the direction of the country. When you look at the fighting going on between the Xers and the boomers, there's no way that we can go anywhere except where we are now. I mean, think about it. Every couple of months, we're going to have a shutdown because they can only agree to kick the can down the road maybe like 90 days before, right. Oh my God, we have another uprising and they can't figure their stuff out.
Right.
Right, and that's
pathetic.
Yeah, and it's the same short-term solutions in the corporate world. It's the same short-term solutions in the social contracts as they are out there. It's the same. Really, it is. It's all about the short-term solutions. And I think she's very right. It's about the tug of war between those two particular, wisdoms, let's just say.
That's funny.
Well, because as much as we want to totally discount the idea that there is, sort of left wing and right wing out there because they are both, connected to the same body, the thing is that when it comes to the idealism, when it comes to the mannerisms and the problem, the reaction to the problem and the solutions,
yeah,
hello, we're going to have totally different points of view,
Well, what I would like to do granted, Frankie's only 6 months old, but I would like to teach him things that he's not going to learn in school. Again, I guess a little off, but I would like to teach him how to build things. I would like to teach him how to start his own garden. I would like to teach him how to farm. I would like to teach him how to be self-sufficient. Not necessarily be a CEO because you know what? That's a hell of a lot of stress, I think. For your $80,000, $90,000, $100,000 a year. That's what happened to the middle class. When I was in college taking sociology, the professor asked a question, how come there is so much suicide in the middle class, but there is not much suicide in the upper class or the lower class? And I said, because the middle class is trying so hard to be upper class and to maintain, well, not so much become upper class, but because it is so difficult to be middle class, to maintain that middle class status, that they're so afraid of falling down into the poverty level. The stress is just overwhelming. So to me, would I like to be a CEO of a company and make $100,000? Yeah, but is it worth the stress that it's going to put on me? No, because I don't think that's going to make me a better person. If I can provide for my family by owning, a friend of ours owns a lot of property. I won't mention any names, but he is becoming off the grid. He is self-sufficient. To me, that's a beautiful thing.
Well, right, but self-sufficiency is one thing. The thing, like we covered earlier, is the inspiration of
but
innovation.
you can be creative, and you can be anything you want to be if you put your mind to it.
Well, but see, that's the thing.
And you have support. If you have parents that throw an iPad at you and say, all right, here you go, you little brat, play game, and I'm going to go on my computer and Facebook with my friends, and there's absolutely no parent-child. And I'm not talking about all parents do this, because they don't. But I know a few that do. They throw the video game at the kid, and that's the babysitter. They don't encourage them to read. They don't encourage them to write. They don't encourage them to play a musical instrument. They don't encourage them to learn how to plant their own seeds and watch them grow into a plant. They don't do any of that. And I think that also is lost.
You have to sort of vet influences is what it is. I mean, if you listen to what Suzanne said about, inspiring her son to, listen, instead of playing Minecraft, which eventually becomes, mindless gameplay, why not take this, learn something which you can apply in one way or another, and really creates a great many endless possibilities. It's stuff like that. It's vetting the influence on them. And being the influence, to some degree, but then really trying to allow them to become their own most influential, input, I guess. I don't know how to really put that into words, but I mean, really teaching them to speak to themselves and to speak to the world around them through their actions.
Well, I have a problem with conformity, and you know that.
Well, yeah, but you see, nothing I said has anything to do with being a conformist.
But the whole thing kind of is conforming. I'm going to go to school, and I'm going to get an education and pay all this money to become, whatever. And you're to me, that's conforming. I think it would be cool as hell to build my own house.
Well, yeah, but that's my point. See,
am I missing the point, or
no? It's not about conformity. It's actually about allowing them to explore the possibilities and speaking to what speaks to them. Like she said, the fact that she's giving him something that, okay, look, you're gravitating toward building.
That's awesome.
That's fine, great. Now
because he's using his hands, he's using his mind.
But you give him the tools best you can to encourage that which speaks to them. You know what I'm saying? And allow them to be individuals. Don't try and cookie cut the kids, and don't give them the, well, look, path to education equals path to greatness, so on and so forth. Maybe for some of them it's actually helpful, because they might learn some things that they can take and do something else with.
Right.
The college dropout scenario that she was talking about regarding, again, not to speak morally or, whatever.
No, but that does say something.
Gates or Zuckerberg, but
look what he accomplished. I mean, granted, his personality we can just not even discuss, and every other aspect about him,
or the possible nefarious purposes behind some of their actions.
Right, but did he go to Harvard? I think he dropped out of Harvard. And I mean, look what he created.
Right.
Take away all the crap about it. Look what he created.
See, individuality needs to be encouraged, but not individually coddling the singular. That's it. You gotta take your lumps occasionally. You gotta hit your own finger. Hit your own thumb with the hammer. That's the way the world is. And sometimes, you know what? You're gonna build something and it's gonna get knocked down, and all of your work will go for naught. But listen, if you do just exactly the right thing and you learn your own way through these things and you become a unique individual, you can have a unique life. I mean, that's the overall message.
Custom life. I mean, that's my ultimate dream is my personal custom life. And you have to get knocked down to get back up and be a stronger person and have a stronger character. And like Suzanne said, there's too much coddling. Oh my God, my kid fell and skinned his knee. Holy crap, we got to go to the emergency room. You know what? I wipe my spit on it and send him on his way. You're fine. Here, mommy, clean it off. You're good. Get going. You don't see that anymore. Little kids got a little bit of dirt on their lip. Oh, let mommy wipe that off. You wipe it off and off they go. Oh, anybody sees you do that anymore. Oh, my, oh. It's
I call it a flesh wound.
Because, oops.
It's only a flesh wound.
But I mean, kids fall and skin their knee.
That's what happens. We, not to quote a film, but I thought it was clever. We fall so that we learn to get back up. Right?
Oh,
if you don't let them fall, they're not going to learn to get back up. Now, don't let them fall down a flight of stairs, but...
Well, that happened to one of my kids once.
Well...
Oops.
That's why they have the safety stairs in the baby cages.
Well,
that's why they have the ambulance too.
Listen, one of mine separate from yours, and my toddler went tumbling down fully unsafe wooden, no padding stairs.
Oh dear!
But I mean, it was an accident.
The funny thing was, everybody backed off for a second. She stood up and looked at us like, "What are you looking at?" She was fine. I'm serious. That happened.
Right, I know.
She was like,
but nowadays, I mean, that kid would be wrapped up in bubble wrap, and
absolutely,
they go anywhere near those stairs there in bubble wrap.
Absolutely, Yeah,
oh my
God. Live in these flat houses, so you don't even have to have that problem. They won't even have stairs up at your stoop anymore because they could fall down and hit the concrete. Oh dear Lord, what will happen then?
They won't know what a stair is.
Wasn't everything supposed to be round in the future? So we didn't have to worry about bumping into corners?
Exactly.
It's difficult to build rounded ramps everywhere, though, for everybody. So
I'm just going to put I'm putting Francis in a bubble.
Remember the Jetsons? Everything was round, and they made that joke in that 70s show that was popular a couple of years ago that everything was supposed to be round in the 70s. By then, it was the future that everybody was promised, the Xanadu, and we still have the problems that we've always had. And that's the funny thing, that the difference, I was showing my son the difference in technological CGI and graphics. We were watching a video of Michael Jackson back in 77 or 78, where they superimposed him with a blue screen and had different backgrounds going on. And my son was like, how did they do that? And I said, well, here, watch this video. And I put the black or white video on. And when they got to the end, where all the faces morph into each other, my son's jaw hit the floor, and I said, now, there's less than 10 years of technology between the two, where they just started using the blue screen in the late 70s to the late 80s, where they were able to morph an Asian man's face into an African-American woman's face into a white baby's face. The technology, the growth of technology is exponential, and how we deal with the innovations of our time. Think about it. Farmers in the early 1900s protested dearly, severely, when it came to using tractors or implements. And most farmers went out of business during that time because they couldn't afford the tractors and implements. Now, if you talk to a farmer now and you tell him that he can't use his tractor, he tell you he can't farm. Right. That is how technology influences us. It's how we embrace it and use it in our next generation that helps define our limitations and our abilities. And when it comes to the socialization, the dependency on it affects also whether or not we are able to overcome or whether we're dependent on the technology that's in front of us.
Going back to the Jetsons, though, I mean, this is off topic, but wouldn't it be cool to just, like, hop into one of those little things and just jet around? That would be, like, the coolest thing in the world. I'm going to hop on into my little spaceship, and I'm going to go somewhere. I don't know.
Well, they just built the hoverboard.
They built the what?
They just built the hoverboard. Tony Hawk, who is a professional skater, actually got to ride on it. It uses magnetic repulsion. And
I want one.
Exactly. I was reading an article 2 days ago about Back to the Future Part 2 because it was set in 2015.
There you go.
And so they had all these experts and tech gurus commenting on the technology that was in that movie because it's happening. We're in that year now. And they were laughing at how everything was faxes. But, faxes were big back then. So, faxes? Who faxes anymore? Are you kidding me? What's ironic is...
I do. I have to sometimes at work. Wow, well, that's bad.
Have to. But we use text messages and our phones more than anything, even though as far as workplace goes, emails are king. Most of us do our business transactions. So like you were mentioning, hand your kid the tablet and here's a game. Well, that's actually something that child could turn into as a positive advancement in their life. It depends on what you do with that tablet. My husband built a business on his own, so when he uses his cell phone, he's making business deals and earning a living for our family, whereas somebody else might pick up the same cell phone and play Candy Crush. It's all dependent on how you use the technology. But my husband was also raised by a late silent generation who built his own business, who took every dime he had, even sold his wedding silver, and put it into this build, and ended up building the third largest silver foundry in the country. So my husband has that ethic from the silent generation, where if you have an ingenuitous spirit, you foster that and cultivate that. And it took my husband until his late 30s in order to accomplish that goal, where his father had already had his business established in his late 30s. This is exactly what we need to keep passing down. Because like I said, the only way that the middle class is going to work, and yes, we are using more technology, so we're going to have to get tech savvy. If you're not tech savvy now, you're out of the loop. Figure out how to get tech savvy. But the tech savvy part of it is not the dubious part that we need to be, oh my God, fearful of. It's a tool in which we can use to create commerce that didn't exist before, so that we can not only live a nice life, but that we can engage our community in other ways, that we can afford to turn philanthropy on its head. When you watch the World Economic Forum, which will be coming up very shortly in the next couple of months because they get together in the beginning of the year, and they don't have some guy standing outside with a bullhorn or a secret list that's not really secret because it's posted up on the internet weeks before they even attend it. But, the World Economic Forum is where all the deals are made, all the movers and shakers, all the money that's invested, and all of the venturing schemes that people need money for, they go to the World Economic Forum. And even people like Bill Gates and Al Gore are going to the World Economic Forum and asking investors for money into their projects, whether it's climate change or vaccines, or whether it's to help IBM with their servers or to build a smart city or whatever it is. That is something that people should be paying attention to, in my opinion, because as we try to hold on to that entrepreneurial spirit, we need to understand that we have the tools available to us, but we also have a generation who is like, hey, I'm going to stay under the radar. If I don't do anything wrong, nobody can touch me. And then we have a generation who's like, everything is candy and roses, and everybody loves me because I'm me and I'm perfect, and if I show up, everybody is happy. You're not going to have any hardworking, ethical people doing the due diligence, trying to keep trying to come up with a theory and try to build it and be smart enough to have a malleable theory so that it changes, because maybe it defies the laws of physics, but maybe you can find something within the construct of the physical world that you can make that work. But if you don't understand physics and you don't understand rudimentary math, I know that we don't use algebra. I laugh at it all the time. My son is 8 years old, and I'm homeschooling him, and he's going into 4th grade right now. And he's getting to the point where I'm going to have to employ my husband, who's better at math. My husband is the type of guy who can go up to a chalkboard and write one of those huge algorithms up on the chalkboard and understand it. So I'm going to have to employ him to start teaching my husband, to our son, math, because I'm getting to the point where I dropped off in high school. I didn't pay attention anymore because I didn't see the point. If I could balance my checkbook, who cared? If I could, I didn't care what E equals MC squared means. Now that I'm teaching my son, I actually do, and my son understands E equals MC squared better than I do, which is hilarious. But
I think that they have to be well-rounded altogether with everything. Not just technology, but actually being able to use their hands to do things as well.
Yes, you have to know the long way. I mean, when we got to division, I told my son, yes, I can teach you the short way, but you have to learn long division. And that is true in all life. If you're going to actually hone in on your ability to do something, you have to do it the long way. Because in that, you learn yourself the shortcuts and the ways in which you can become faster at it or use better materials for whatever it is that you're doing. You become smarter by figuring out by being taught the long way and then figuring out shortcuts. But again, that necessitates a mind that is not just regurgitating facts that they memorize and taking ACT and SAT tests in order to make sure that the board of schools has their money for the fiscal year.
Right.
It necessitates more than that. And if we're going to have another generation, which the Homeland generation is six generations out from the greatest generation, and that's where we had Einstein, and that's where we had Hubble, and we had all these great scientists and great innovators. If the Homeland generation is going to bring that back, they're going to have to, the indoctrination in the schools is absolutely paramount. We cannot have our education system solely dependent on government and religious institutions, because otherwise we're going to fall more into this medieval feudalism idea that millennials have even adopted as part of their evolution into this new age, which is ridiculous to me. Because even though some of them, through open source technology, understand how to write code and never went to school to do it, and to build websites and never went to school to do it, the lack of the ingenuitous spirit that I'm learning this so that I can become compartmentalized and I can go find a function is not the reason why you teach yourself how to do something and tinker in your garage to build something better for the world.
Right, right. Well, my oldest daughter, when she was in, I guess it was 7th grade, she was in the gifted and talented and was invited to take the SATs with seniors in our town. And she scored well above a lot of the seniors that took the test as well. But her problem is she's a lot like me, where she's, rebellious and I don't need to do this. And, to me it's a shame because her brilliance is being wasted. And I find sometimes that the harder you push, at least this was for me, the harder that somebody tried to push me to do something, the harder I resisted. So her ability, I don't know where it's going to go. Hopefully, she's older now, so hopefully she'll realize what intelligence she actually has and utilizes it to her advantage.
I had a problem. I noticed my son, as he's getting older, was increasingly disinterested in schoolwork, and it was a very, very arduous, stressful time for both of us when it was time to do schoolwork, and we both looked at each other like, because it was always ending up in a fight. And I sat down and I thought about, okay, how was I taught in school? Because that's the only example that I have, and whether I'm conscious of it or not, I'm replicating it. So I took a whole weekend, and my husband joined me, and we watched documentaries and read documents about the school system going all the way back to the early 19th century. And I realized that my inadequacy in going to public school, even though I took school seriously at the time, and lots of my friends did not, and it was the 80s, who cared, So I took my school very seriously, and I took college very seriously, even though I was still wearing my goth outfits in my paralegal studies class, and the professors would come up to me and say, you know what, you're going to have to tone that down if you're going to get a job. But as a Gen Xer, I still showed up,
Wow.
with my goth makeup and my goth outfits. I didn't care. Somebody was going to hire me, blah, blah, blah. I realized that I had an inadequate idea, an Prussian idea, a Pavlovian idea of what education is, even though I consider myself an open-minded free thinker. When it came down to the application, I reverted back to what I knew, and what I knew was Prussian Pavlovian education system. So I've taken, my son got Christmas break because it gave me the opportunity to unprogram myself and look at more inclusive ways. And when I came to my son and reminded him that we're going to start schoolwork, and I told him, well, we're going to change things up a bit. And the one thing that he said to me, and he interrupted me when I was talking, but he did raise his hand. He raises his hand. Some of the response systems that I've taught him, I understand their value, but it's a tinge in my heart every time I see him doing it. And raising the hand is one of them. But his main concern was that we have time to enjoy in between the lessons. And he said, Mom, it's okay if we go like an hour and then maybe we can turn on some music and dance or run around in the backyard or, dig up something and discover something or go to the park. But I need more time to have more fun and digest the information in between injections of information. And I realized that just like when they were children, when they were littler, and I was trying to figure out, well, how often do you feed this kid? And they don't come with an instruction manual, and just because they cry doesn't mean they're always hungry, but that's the first thing you do. You shove something in their mouth, and if they keep crying, then you check the diaper, and if they keep crying, you're like, I don't know what to do. I decided when the kids were babies to follow their schedule when they wanted food and not to force them. And actually my kids only eat as much as they need, and they don't overeat. You could have a plate full of chocolate, and if they're done eating 2 pieces, they won't touch anymore. I decided to take that approach with my son, a more organic approach. So I don't know. I'll let you know how it goes because we're going to do this starting on Monday.
Okay.
But I realize that if we're going to fix this, we really do have to focus in on our children. And the children that are out of college, in the workforce, or heading toward college, they're already programmed, so it's over. And we're just going to have to deal with whatever they do. But the generation that's still in our care is the generation that we can say, okay, look, this is what is acceptable and this is what isn't. And this is when you decide that you're going to compromise with people or stand your ground. And this is when you're going to dig your heels in and say, no, I'm not going to take this anymore. That you make sure that you are comfortable and okay regardless of what's going on around you. And yes, like you were saying, that has to do with self-sustaining, but it also has to do with the ingenuitous spirit that if you get fired tomorrow, that doesn't matter. You'll just start another job. If they can create money out of nowhere, you can create a job out of nowhere. And if you create a job that gives other people jobs, if it's something that a legacy that you can pass down to your children, that will be that the logic and reasoning and emotional reaction are diametric opposites. And so far, we've been inundated with emotion and reactivity. And look at where it's gotten us. And so one of these generations, and I'm hoping it's Homeland generation, will look at that and say, I understand that we naturally react to this type of situation, but I'm going to logically sit down and think about this and find the best solution that not only solves my issue, but solves everybody else's issue so that we don't have this problem again. I want that to be the foundational thought behind what my children do in the future, and I hope what their generation does, because when they go to become CEOs of companies and politicians and sit on councils, sit in state governments, I hope that they're not cut down by the stalemate that the boomers and the Xers are having right now, that they can look at things logically and understand that, if insider trading is wrong, it's wrong. Whether Joe down the street is doing it or Nancy Pelosi is doing it. It's wrong. It doesn't benefit anybody. We need to get rid of it. And all of these are other archaic ideas that we hold on to because we're afraid of the boogeyman underneath our bed. Maybe the Homeland generation can finally shed that and not be superstitious and not be not base their life on magic, but be enthralled by magic and realize that it is an illusion, but it's an illusion for entertainment purposes, and it's not supposed to be applicable to your everyday life.
That's true.
No, all good points, and you know, again, and intellect alone is not going to solve, you know, anything. You know, if it was what you can score on an IQ test that is the true measuring stick for one's life,
I don't agree. I don't agree with tests.
Doing extremely well.
Not all people can. Not all people do well on tests.
No, of course not. But that goes back to the system. I mean, I'm just saying that that, you know, somebody with a powerful intellect can still find themselves in the what I consider to be a straitjacket that the world has kind of laid out, you know, for most of us,
right? Well,
wandering in the world out here who are not, you know, part of the upper crust. Let's just say at the moment.
Oh no, but we'll get there.
Einstein worked as a patent clerk.
Exactly.
And at night, he was figuring out the theory of relativity and equals MC squared. These people are doing that today. You know, the guy who's flipping burgers at McDonald's might be at home trying to figure out with a rudimentary chemistry set how to cure cancer.
Right.
And we have children as young as 8 coming up with technology that they're getting prizes for. They're going to speaking at TED conferences. They're actually, universities are using these in tests. Healthcare industries are using some of these technologies. These children are their capability is staggering, but their direction is all over the place.
Did you see the little girl? I think she was I don't remember how old, but she was young. She invented a cup for her grandfather. He has Parkinson's, and she created a cup that he could use, because every time he would have a cup of tea or coffee, his hand would shake so badly that the hot beverage would spill and burn him. So she invented this. I think it's called a kangaroo cup, but it's got three legs on it, and it's steady. So when he picks it up, it doesn't. When he shakes, it doesn't spill all over him. She was on the CNN.
I missed all this stuff.
Well, yeah, you were on one of your shows. I was watching the CNN People of the Year that they chose. But, I mean, there were quite a few children that they recognized. One little girl, her mission was to donate books to all of the countries. I mean, and to me, that's, you know, I don't know where that drive comes from. I don't know if they're born with that drive or if their parents instill that drive in them. But you do also just have lazy children.
You do, but these are representative of the Homeland generation and the tail end of the millennial generation, where these children have a different set of values. Where the late Xers and you and Chuck as well, because you have a young one, and your ideology is shaping and changing as well, and as you're bringing him up. These are kids who see a problem and want to solve it, and that is the ingenuitous spirit that the millennials don't have because they were so coddled. That this child could look at her father or her grandfather who has Parkinson's and can't enjoy a cup of tea and develop something and actually sit down and the parents being supportive and helping them build the prototype. It's a holistic thing that's happening here, and with that is our only hope. Seriously, you know, there have been many books written on this, and you know, everybody likes to say nice and kind things about millennials, and there are nice and kind things that you can say, but the Homeland generation is creating all of these new technologies there was a little boy, Aaron Sonson, in 2013, who built an app for good. And this was an app that shows young people how to rate their experiences with police after being stopped and searched. This is a child who did this. Mm. So these kids care about our world. They really want to change things. They want to be part of the change. They want to roll their sleeves up and get in there and fix it all and reconfigure the puzzle pieces and make it fit, instead of just mashing it up together the way the millennials and the Gen Xers and even the boomers have done. This is the spark that is going to cause these corporations and these governments the actual problem that they're anticipating. The millennial generation is being slated by all different political sides to be the revolutionary generation who causes us to go into from tyranny into police state, which then leads us into socialism. But it doesn't have to be that way. Because we have a group of young kids who are so focused on not just building community like the millennials, everything has to be community, and that's the only way you can survive, but they see the individual as contributing to their community, just like Einstein did, just like Tesla did, just like the early robber barons did before they got mesmerized by all the bedazzling. All of the innovation of the industrial age that sparked out of the need for ingenuity and then became so nefarious. But that spark in itself is happening with the Homeland generation. And those children will then take the pendulum and say, you know what, the extremity is the problem. And we see that now. There is a resurgence of an intolerance of racial divide, of class divide, of governmental intrusion into our life. And because of all of these things kind of melting together in like a stew on the pot, here come the Homeland generation looking up and saying, well, I don't even want to eat this. I would rather just make myself a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or something, or go somewhere else and do something else other than deal with this horrible stew that's festering over here that I'm supposed to eat. That is not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, but realizing, hey, we can't tear down the entire system, okay? I'm sorry, anarchists, you can't do it, because what you're going to end up with is socialism the very next day, because if you tear everything down, there's going to be nothing. They are going to come and knock down your door because they need a can of soup that's in your cupboard. And there will be lawlessness, absolute lawlessness. And if you want to guarantee police state, please go out there and conduct a revolution, because that's the surefire way to get police state, and the only way to calm everybody down after they lost everything, they have no money and no way to get it back, is socialism, because you have to turn everyone dependent on what the government can provide for you, and as much as they can, and you'll adapt and you'll take it. The Homeland generation is the savior, if you want to use that, of this crux problem that we find ourselves in now. That if we foster the ingenuity, if we foster the self-esteem, that if we teach them to create and build and revive the middle class so that there is always a balance between the upper and the lower, then we actually have a real fighting chance. We just need to let them be who they are. They don't have the hang-ups that Gen Xers do or boomers do. They didn't. There's no war. Everything is possible with them. And to me, that's what needs to keep going, you know.
Well, right. You know, I kind of have an objection to there is a war, but it's not being called a war, so it's not the cause of war like it used to be. You know, there's plenty of warfare to be had on the planet. It's just no longer, the codifying event that it once was.
Well, millennials woke up one day as children and saw two planes fly into buildings. And we can argue about that, but let's just say for argument's sake that's what happened. That drastically changed them, as opposed to me when I was an adult in college watching that. The experience that I had as a 27-year-old or 28-year-old watching that happen is vastly different than a 6 or 7-year-old or 9-year-old watching that event happen. And it changes how you view the world. I had already had my world view when the Twin Towers fell down, but children who watched that had a completely different worldview on September 12th. Their entire paradigm was shattered because possibilities that they had never even conceived of were now possible and had to be part of their paradigm. And so shaking up the world in which you live in and at such a formidable age, especially from 0 to 15 or 10, means that that person is going to, when they get to 40s or 50s, resurge that fear that they felt in their childhood and try to make sure that that fear never happens again. And then what happens is the fanaticism of it. Oh my God, we have to lock everything down. Oh my God, it's not just that you have the baby on board sign. Now we have to have CPS everywhere and your kids can be taken from you at any moment. It wasn't just enough that when I was a kid, this little boy was stolen from a park because he had a shirt with his name on it, and just so happened that that was fashionable at the time. We all were wearing shirts with our names on it, and all the parents in the neighborhood threw their shirts in the garbage. My mother made pillows out of them, so my brother and I had pillows that used to be sweaters and T-shirts with our names on it. But that changed everything. The possibility that somebody could know my name and steal me and murder me changed everything about how I view the outside world. And somebody who had never had that. I was a child when Adam Walsh was taken, and 2 months after he was taken, I got lost in a Sears. You should have seen my mother. She had a conniption. And Adam Walsh was taken in Coral Gables, which was a 45-minute drive from the Sears that I got lost in. So my mother had a complete conniption. She was convinced that the guy who took Adam Walsh had taken me. And she had the entire store. This was before Amber Alert. She had the entire store on Red Alert. Everybody, every customer, until I was found. And this all went on for about 15 minutes.
Well, going back to the kids who are seeing things and coming up with solutions to the problem, they haven't, and this is funny because my show is called Jaded, but they haven't been jaded yet. So
no, if it happens now, CPS will be on that door. I mean, think about it. We've heard stories of mothers who decided that they didn't want the vaccine shot, and CPS comes knocking on their door the next day. The pediatrician is calling on them. That idea of children are, we saw this in movies too. We went from Father's Knows Best to Family Ties and the Bill Cosby Show to Tool Time and King of Queens, where fathers are bumbling idiots and the glue is held together by the mother, and if the mother wasn't there, nothing would happen. And the idea that children can teach their parents how to be better parents. We saw changes in films. When I was a child, Damien was out, and Chucky, and all these movies where kids were evil, and remember Pet Sematary? Everybody remembers the scene at the end when the little boy has that scalpel. Oh my God! Okay, that affected us greatly. And the next generation had films where the parents were bumbling idiots and the children had to help them become better parents. And now we see films where the children and the parents are kind of growing up together and having more of a holistic friendship rather than an authoritative stance as far as parenting goes. These ideas shift and change, and whether it's influenced by the movies or whether the movies influence us is absolutely debatable. But the fact is that the next generation then takes an extreme version of that and imbues that onto their children. And then the children react to that. And then ironically, in their older age, come back to the values of their parents, which actually came from the values of their parents. And then foster this fanatical need to create a system that is safe for everybody to participate in, otherwise no one can participate in. And that's why, as our constitutional republic has shifted over the generations, we've moved farther away from the ideas of constitutional republic, because it means that you have to be responsible for what you do, even what you say. You can't just promise someone, hey, I'll meet you on Saturday at 2 p.m. and then just not show up and not call. Under a true constitutional republic, you would be held accountable for that. Well, that idea is preposterous to anyone today. But at the time, your word was your bond, and everything that you did was an extension of your ideology as a man, as a woman, as a respectable person, as someone that could be trustworthy, that had integrity. These ideas have shifted over time. And of course, controllers have had their influence, corporations, advertising, Bernays. You run the gamut, you name a name, it has had influence on it. But the fact of the matter is, each generation is raised with the ideology that their parents instilled on them, that their parents instilled before. And as we age and we go through our rebellious phase and we go through our acquisition phase where we just acquiesce to the fact, and then as we get older we go into this fanatical phase where we are afraid of dying. We know that we only have 20 years left and the reality of our mortality is hitting us, and then we start either thinking about legacy or thinking about how we're going to stop the aging process and come through it with either ideology, whether it's fear-based or it's communal-based. But that affects the cleanup mess that the generation behind them, who will be coming into their age of power, have to deal with. And then that's in time immemorial. You can go back in history books and see that every 6 generations you have an age of enlightenment where the generation says, you know what, all y'all are nuts. We need to balance this out. And 6 generations out, that is the homeland generation. So as fanatical and as crazy as our world is getting, we have a generation of people who understand that there has to be compromise and there has to be equality throughout the extreme ideologies and come to some sort of middle ground. Otherwise, we're all going to just either blow the planet up and all kill each other for forever.
Well, right. Listen, Suzanne, we're gonna let you go. I want you to just quickly tell everybody. I mean, of course, OccupyCorporatism.com. If you want to go ahead and drop in, of course, the U.S. Independent. You can see a lot of the stuff, and we didn't even touch on any of the articles.
Yeah, we didn't. I got to actually talk about other stuff. Thank you.
Right. So, we went through the generations and everything, but anything else that you want to drop on here, please do, and then we'll let you go. I want to thank you for coming on Kim's show tonight. I try to keep my mouth shut, but, I talk too much anyway, no matter where I am. So
that's okay. Yes, OccupyCorporatism.com and the U.S. Independent is the online newspaper. I have 23 contributors, very wonderful people. In the spirit of ingenuity, my husband and I saw a need for real plant-based crystal CBD in the market, and so we created a business, and now you can purchase pharmaceutical grade, FDA compliant. We are working on FDA approval, crystal pure CBD. And so if you don't want to take any of the black stuff anymore, you don't want that hemp paste that's making people sick, you can actually get the CBD that you need through crystalpurecbd.com, and you can
I'll be looking for that.
Absolutely. Because when I did research into these studies that these universities are doing, where they show that it has positive effects on everything from cancer to stomach aches, I noticed that they're all using crystal CBD. They're not using the hemp paste. Why? Because the hemp paste is 85% black stuff, which is heavy metal solvents, fillers, wax, you name it, it's in there. And only 15% CBD. So why not get 100% pure CBD? Get the same quality grade that the test subjects are getting when they're doing these studies, and actually get the results that the test subjects are getting when they do these studies. If we're going to use this as a health factor, then we have to have the ability to use the proper amount of it, the proper grade of it, in order to get those same results. So Crystal Pure CBD is now on the market. It's the only one of its kind. And go to crystalpurecbd.com. If you need medical advice, Novus Medical Group is a group that we have hooked up with. They have all over the nation doctors, RNs, medical professionals who all work with CBD and medical marijuana. So if you want a medical doctor's opinion on what you should do about what's wrong with you, you can get that at Novus Medical Group. Let them know that we sent you, and you can buy our product at wholesale. So if you need to save some money and get some medical advice, go to Novus Medical Group and buy Crystal Pure CBD at a fraction of the cost, so that you can get on the road to a better recovery. And go check us out at Crystal Pure CBD. We have the latest test results, and just to brag a little bit, it's 99.8% pure, and the constituent that we use is 99.999% pure, and we have those independent laboratory tests on the website at crystalpurecbd.com.
Great.
There you go.
Thank you.
And, definitely I advise everybody to check that out. And thanks for coming on, Suzanne. And, it's really great. Of course, you'll be on my show again sometime soon. We will do that again, because we try and do that at least once a month.
Absolutely. You just give me a date and I'll be there.
Absolutely. All right. So,
thank you, Suzanne.
Listen, have a good night.
Thank you.
And, absolutely, we will be hearing from you again.
Thank you, guys. This was fantastic. I normally go on shows and talk about my articles, but I always love the shows when I get to talk about everything else that's going on. So thank you very much. It was a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you.
Have a good night, Suzanne. So.
Alrighty.
We covered a lot of ground there.
We did. But I still want to know how everybody's New Year's was. So maybe somebody will call me now and tell me how it was. Perhaps. Being that there's 10 minutes left, and I went through my entire bottle of wine, and not one person called me. 718-717-8296, and somebody offered to buy me a bottle of wine if I got a particular guest on the show.
Oh, which guest?
I'm going to call you out on this one, too. Let me see. Where is it? I think it's, some porn guy. I'm trying to find it now. Here.
A porn guy?
Because I'm going to get that porn guy on. But I'm trying to find who said, somebody said they would buy me if I got somebody what's his name? Oh, for crying out loud. Somebody help me out here, because I'm hanging. Where is it? Somebody said they would buy me... Oh, here it is. Anon3876. If I can get Noah Poshner on the show, they'll buy me a bottle of wine. If I get him on the show, I will give you my address, and I will tell you the wine that I drink, and I will expect it in the mail. So... we'll see what happens. I don't even know who that person is.
Well, it's an anonymous person in the chat room. It could be anybody.
No, who's Noah Posner?
Oh, I don't know who that is either.
Is he
off the top of my head?
Ron Jeremy or something?
I don't know who he is.
I can't understand why that guy's still a hit. My God. You need to put a bag over his head.
Okay.
You do. Good Lord. Good Lord, or at least close your eyes. Something. I don't know. But that is not attractive. Not even in the least. Anyway.
I don't know.
So somebody can call in the next 10 minutes.
Or if you're on my Skype list, just,
I don't
Skype in.
bite hard.
Okay.
I really don't.
It's okay. It's okay. See, this is why I don't want to do. See, I told you I didn't want to ever do a roundtable show.
Roundtables are fun if people would call.
But I did, okay. Remember, I did the After the Last Cup thing, twice?
Well, that was fun.
By myself, and...
Jimmy was funny.
But no, I'm talking about when I did it by myself. I didn't like being
fuck that. I won't do it by myself.
Well, but see,
but that's... here like an idiot.
But that's the real position, unless you have a couple of reliable people that'll show up. I mean...
They'll hear this.
What was it, 15 weeks that I was on in a row with him? You know?
Well, we were on every single Saturday.
That's what I'm saying. 15 weeks in a row, I think I was on.
You kept count?
After the Last Cup. I guess.
Did you mark it on the calendar?
No.
No?
It was quite a few months, though. I mean, because, It was just one of those things that I did.
What?
It was fine. I enjoyed it, actually, and usually I would follow up on my interview, whatever it was that I was doing that night, and that was always good. And then it was kind of nice to blow off steam, but I don't know.
What don't you know?
I don't enjoy doing the roundtable thing.
Let's see. Noah Posner is the boy from Sandy Hook. Well. Okay. He's not a porn star?
Now I know. Well,
we're talking about porn. Does he do porn?
Possibly.
From the Sandy Hook shooting, Sandy Hook?
Look, I have no idea.
Or Sandy Hook, New Jersey, where we used to live.
No. Obviously, they would not even bother to discuss Sandy Hook, New Jersey. It's still.
I know that Ron Jeremy is a Jew. Thank you very much. I am well aware of that.
But was he a dancing Israeli? Answer that for me.
I told you. The dancing Israelis are still in my kitchen cabinet.
See, you missed it, because like I said, I'm calling a certain part of my anatomy.
Well, your nuts are not in my cabinet, but I do have, they are out there waiting for me to be done with my show, because I have some entertainment.
More than one guy.
It's midnight.
More than one guy can be named John. Okay, so therefore, more than one thing can be called a dancing Israeli. All right.
So am I Mrs. Ochelliberg?
I haven't seen them.
I made it clear that I wasn't Jewish. I told them I was a pagan.
Yeah, well.
What? I did.
I don't know. They'll probably say you converted because it's a rule in the Kabbalah or something. Because
I don't even know what the hell that is, so it doesn't matter.
I know. You have no idea about the whole...
I don't know.
I know. It's all right.
Yeah, I know. It's all good.
It could be all good.
It could be. It's always all good.
Listen.
Not could be. Always.
Well, your show, your rules. It's fine.
Exactly.
Okay.
Thank you. So thanks for the call-in, guys. Who's naked? Oh, wow. Interesting. Why are you naked? Because we're talking about Ron Jeremy?
We're not even... All right.
Somebody is?
Well, you know I've done the show naked a couple of times.
That's awesome.
I have.
That is awesome.
Well, you know that, though.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do.
No, I don't.
We had this discussion. You're forgetting now.
No. No, I don't think so.
JJ said on the air one day.
I don't think so.
That... Or no, not on the air. I think he said it in the chat room that he had done his show naked or whatever, and then I had explained that I did, and it was in the chat room like, I don't know, 6 months ago now. And I went and I told you.
Ew, was it in this chair that I'm sitting in right now?
Really bad that you're saying ew to something having to do with me naked, but okay, fine. Okay. Anyway, no, actually, no, it wasn't on the chair, no.
Where was it?
No, it was when I had to set up the laptop on the mattress.
Oh, that's even better.
So I was just kind of, I was doing well because I had the bad backache too.
I think we need to stop that conversation.
No, I had the bad backache, and I was.
So because you had a bad backache, you had to be naked?
No, I was just laying down on the mattress and was comfortable that way. And nobody sees me while I'm on the radio, so I don't care.
Well, that is true.
So?
That's how I was trying to read that article, remember? And it doesn't really go well visually on the radio. When that woman was with that guy who cut her to pieces and put her on the stove.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Well, that kind of thing fascinates me more than disturbs me. So.
Ew! What do you mean it fascinates you? Holy shit, good thing we don't have a very large pot.
I didn't say anything. I said it fascinates me when things like that, come out in the news. It always has. I mean,
cutting people up, putting them in a pot, and boiling them.
That people behave that way.
Holy
abnormal
shit.
Psychiatry, psychology. Yeah, it does.
That is not normal.
Well, no, like I said, abnormal psychology.
Oh, my God.
Like the whole Jeffrey Dahmer scenario. I mean, that was something that I did a lot of reading on for a bit. You
know what cracked me? I was listening back to that show, and you know what made me laugh? When you said he was, oh, God, what did you say? Something about, well, obviously he was... Yes, you do hear a lighter. I do smoke, too, and I drink wine. Oh, my God, I'm such a sinner. Holy shit. What was I going to say? Oh, that he was, something about being a bisexual. But the way you said it, after I heard it the second time, it cracked me up out loud at work.
Well, I don't know what it was. Jeffrey Dahmer is most notably one of the few, fully gay serial killers.
Well, but you didn't say it as if you said it like it was, like kind of a homo. Either you're a homo or you're not. I mean, right? It's not halfway.
Well, okay. Either that's got to do with my view on bisexuality.
But the way you said, well, he was kind of bisexual. Well, what does that mean? Either you are, or
I don't know. I don't recall the context.
I'm not sure what don't know saying, the polite
he was
way to
actually
say it.
Pretty much gay.
I have
is what it was, and one of those tortured by his own sexuality deals and chose to zombify people by doing stuff like drilling holes in their head and pouring antifreeze in their brains and stuff like that, and preserving the remains.
What did he do with the hole when he was done with it?
Well, that's the thing, is that was his attempt to create like his little zombie sex slaves and things. And
Ew.
He had done a lot of things to...
like his finger?
No. The drilling the hole in the head was to deliver the antifreeze into the brain.
Oh my God.
As a preservative. This was his idea.
Oh my God.
Lots of... But I've been fascinated by lots of serial killers. I mean, John Wayne Gacy was an interesting subject, and he was a child killer.
I'm going to just warn the chat room now that if I disappear, they need to look in the freezer or underneath the deck.
I didn't say...
Oh, wait a minute. There's woods in the back, too.
I didn't say that I want to emulate the individuals that I've studied.
Well,
it's just I've taken time to study these guys.
I just might piss you off enough that you'd want to cut my ankle off or something. I don't know.
That makes... Why would I do that?
I don't know. My ankle might be tasty.
Could be.
If you spice it up good enough and some white wine and a little bit of herbs and garlic and...
Well, a good enough chef does know how to prepare.
Exactly. That's my
any kind of
point. And you're Italian.
So, yeah.
Holy shit, I'm in trouble.
I'm a pretty good cook.
What?
I said I'm a pretty good cook.
I wouldn't know.
Oh, act like I've never cooked anything for you. Act like I've never cooked anything for you.
Hey, I made good hamburgers tonight.
Yeah, but act like
they were good, too.
Notice how we avoid the subject. Act like I never cooked for you.
Sautéed onions and mushrooms.
Yes.
On a very delicious roll.
Now that everybody's aware of what we had for dinner.
Ew! Road dogging loves cankles. Those are the most nastiest things I have ever seen in my life.
See, but the problem is, Road Doggy, if you take a cankle and you throw it in a frying pan, it'll probably reduce down too much, because if there's too much fat on the meat, as we all know, the burgers shrink. Okay?
Hey, my burgers didn't shrink tonight.
That's because you didn't get the high-fat meat. You see. So, the cankle kind of speaks to having...
Cankles are just wrong.
All right, listen.
They are.
Okay.
I'm sorry, they're wrong.
No problem. You're down to your last, minutes.
Oh. All right. Well, I think my music's really cool.
Yeah, it's a lot.
That's my opinion.
A lot cooler than my
like it.
Injection of psychosis that goes on that I created. But
I'm not quite sure who plays it, but I happen to like it.
Oh, the one that's on yours?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's pretty rockin'.
I can't remember the name.
I don't know.
But you know what? It is. It kind of reminds me of an AC/DC riff, and I still am a fan of the hard rock.
AC/DC, every single AC/DC song is a stripper song. Every single song that AC/DC does, a stripper can dance to.
Blues-based rock is stripper music. I used to play it in strip clubs on occasion.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thanks for the visual.
Well, I told you that.
All right. It's great. Thanks for the visual.
What visual? I just said I played music in strip clubs on occasion.
How about this? I used to dance in strip clubs. Oh, there we go. Have a good night, everybody. We'll see you next Saturday night. And be careful of those cankles, Road Dog. They might hurt you. Have a good night.
Render out the fat.